So today I am on my own when it comes to electronics, and that's why I ran to the back. Bob is preaching about an hour away from here. I forget which town it is. He's filling in for somebody. Now this is usually the moment where we invite our children, the young at heart, to come forward, but since we know we have no young at heart because nobody ever comes forward. But there's a saying that says, he with the most toys wins. So who has a few toys at home? Well, I'm grandparents at last. We know you must have some, or all the games over at the community house now, ready for our play later. Have you ever watched kids on a playground, or maybe just in their backyard where another kid comes along? For the most part, whatever they have, they invite another child in to join them in their play. Now one is usually in charge, and the other one's usually a victim of whatever the first one has going on. But there's a natural tendency to want to share what we have. Share our lives, share our experiences, and share our abundance. And sharing is good. But we've gotten into this culture of we need stuff. I always think of George Carlin, a place for all my stuff, and then you run out of room for all your stuff, so you need to get a bigger place for more stuff. It's a vicious cycle. And today's gospel addresses that a little bit, and so I'm going just to dive into today's sermon. Get to the right direction. There we go. So as I read today's gospel, I knew I wanted to head somewhere towards greed. The need to build up our own reserves at the expense of others, and then stupid things were said, and then another meaningless mass shooting, and then the threat of executions, and then religious leaders gathered at the border. And as one of my favorite comedians says, but in the meantime, we're throwing headlines, but in the meantime, other things are happening. It's not a sound normally associated with the border, particularly in its latest role as a natural symbol of incalculable political charge. But there it was, as unmistakable as the pink seesaws that prompted it, laughter. You see, two architects in San Francisco Bay Area installed over the last weekend seesaws between the fence of San Diego and Mexico. And kids on both sides got to play teeter-totter. The video of the seesaw had drawn millions of views after one was posted by Twitter by an actor from Mexico. The project draws power from its simplicity. The way it presented a vision of another reality at the border that contrasts with one created by the heated immigration debate. Interesting enough, at one of my tours of the border, I saw a lovely picture of Pat Nixon just talking to people in the same spot, where the fence had gaps like this where people could picnic with their family who lived on the other side. In the meantime, I saw this just this week, even though it happened a few weeks ago. The world-renowned cellist Yo-Yo Ma performed at the U.S. and Mexican border to make a statement about global unity, urging listeners to build bridges, not walls. The classical musician brought his touring beach project to Laredo, Texas, and then to Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, in the hopes that his music would connect with people and connect people with each other, no matter what their cultural differences. He said, I've lived my life at the borders, between cultures, between disciplines, between musics, between generations. He performed at the International Bridge which connects Texas and Mexico as a backdrop behind him. Quote, in a culture, we build bridges, not walls. A country is not a hotel. It's not full. Yet in the meantime, Francisco Irwin Galicia, a rising high school senior in Edinburgh, Texas, had set off on a Texas road trip on June 27th to attend college soccer team tryout, only to end up accused of lying about his citizenship as authorities questioned the authenticity of his documents. According to his attorney, he had been traveling to North Texas with his brother and a group of friends for a scouting event when they were stopped at a border patrol checkpoint in South Texas town, about 65 miles north of their hometown. They were asked for papers, and Galicia had plenty, including a wallet-sized birth certificate, a Texas ID card, Social Security card. And he said, his lawyer says they didn't believe him. He was held with 60 other men and not allowed to shower for 23 days. He was held, and by the time he was released, he had lost 26 pounds. He says, it was inhumane how they treated us. It got to the point where I was ready to sign a deportation paper just not to be suffering here anymore. I just needed to get out of there. In the meantime, in March of this year, a 9-year-old Julia Medina was detained at the border for 32 hours in spite of her American citizenship. She lives in Tijuana with her family, and they cross the border each morning to get to school. But on one morning, detained with her 14-year-old brother, saying she didn't look like the photo in the passport. And according to NBC San Diego, they said the elementary student who was questioned without her parents provided inconsistent information during an inspection, 9 years old. The agency reportedly had no explanation for why it took 32 hours to confirm her citizenship and release her, although in that time they accused her brother, who's also a U.S. citizen, of human smuggling and trying to have him sign documents saying his sister was his cousin. She was finally released to her mother, who pleaded with the Mexican consulate to contact U.S. immigration authorities. And in the meantime, as this week we recall the bombing of Japan, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists report we are still just 2 minutes before midnight on the doomsday clock. As the Bulletin Science and Security Board prepared for its first set of doomsday clock discussions this fall, it began to referring to the world situation as the new abnormal. This new abnormal is a pernicious and dangerous departure from the time when the United States sought a leadership role in designing and supporting global agreements that advanced a safer and healthier planet. The new abnormal describes a moment in which fact is becoming indistinguishable from fiction, undermining our very abilities to develop and apply solutions to the big problem of our time. The new abnormal risks emboldening autocrats and lulling citizens around the world into a dangerous sense of enemy and political paralysis. So, where do I go? What can I say? My heart breaks daily, and I get angry, and I pray, and yet the world goes on spiraling into a cultural mess that divides, alienates, and blames the other. Our country today has become a hoarder of goods and prosperity and has decided that we need to store up what we have for a better tomorrow, as opposed to sharing it and seeking an egalitarian future. You would think that the world has taught us enough of how hate and prejudice prosper and grows and how to avoid just such situations, and yet it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. It's kind of funny, okay, maybe not, but there is an ongoing argument about just how political a sermon should get. Why isn't there an argument on just how religious politics should get? You see, dear government and world, my faith is not crossing into your government. Your government and its practices and its languages has crossed my faith. You crossed my faith when you allowed slavery to run rampant. You crossed my faith when you ignored the rise of Hitler and you allowed the same divisive rhetoric to permeate our culture. You crossed my faith when you dropped bombs on Japan and then increased our nuclear arsenal. You crossed my faith when you failed to serve veterans properly and you continue to leave them in the dust. You have crossed my faith when you separated children from their families, incarcerated them in prison camps, and you allow human trafficking to prosper in this country. So, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm prayed out. Okay, not really, I can still pray. Thank God. But as I list all these things, all these overwhelming historical facts, all these articles, and this noise, this noise, it's nothing but noise. It's just noise when we get lost in this huge picture. It's so much noise when it overpowers us and makes us feel small and insignificant. It is just noise when we decide to close off the outer world and just focus on ourselves. Though it's a healthy thing to do now and then, but I see it happening more as a permanent resolution than a self-nurturing, prosperous practice. This comes back down to being present to the here and now and being present to our spiritual needs, our prayer life, our quiet time with God, our engaging in the Holy Spirit, which is the answer to our prayers, then listening deeply for the movement of the Spirit. See, the rich farmer is a fool not because he is wealthy or because he saves for the future, but because he appears to live only for himself. And because he believes that he can secure his life with his abundance of possessions. When the rich man talks in this parable, he talks only to and of himself. And the only person he refers to is himself. What should I do, for I have no place to store my crops? I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry. The rich man's land has produced abundantly, and yet he expresses no sense of gratitude to God or to the workers who have helped him plant and harvest the bumper crop. He has more grains and goods in storage than he could ever hope to use, yet seems to have no thought of sharing it with others, and no thought of what God might require of him. He is blind to the fact that his life is not his own to secure. That his life belongs to God and that God can demand it back at any time. The rich man learns the hard way. But the writer of Ecclesiastes realized quite simply that you can't take it with you. All that we work so hard for in life will end up in someone else's hands. And as Ecclesiastes puts it, who knows whether they will be wise or foolish, yet they will be master of all for which I have toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This also is vanity. We may not be able to act on a national level. We may not have the goods to share on a national level, except for by voting. But we can act on a local level. We are collecting items to be sent to our church at the border in Arizona to help them with their mission work. We support denomination, which in turn sends clergy, chaplains, and theologians to address our concerns in the daily business of our government, whether cross the lines into our purview. We serve a community here with food for kids at school programs, and I wonder what it would take, or how many more hands to make this happen at the high school level as well as the grade school. We have a beautiful community meal, but what would it take to make that happen more than once a month? How much more work would it take? Let the community know that this is a free community meal for all. If you can afford it, please donate $10. If you can't, please volunteer. And if you can't volunteer, please enjoy the meal that we put before you. I would encourage, I would like to have a team come sit down with me before we start in the fall and look at how we do this and what we can do to improve it so we can serve our community more than once a month. Can we invite guest chefs in to perhaps do a cooking lesson and then turn that into the meal of the night? So we also teach people how to cook. It's just a thought. I wonder if my phone will ring. I wonder how many people saw the cartoon I posted on Facebook. If you haven't, go to our Facebook page and look for it. I'm not going to reiterate what it is. Let's do more to explore what we can do as a community for our community. Where is the greatest need and what skills do we have to meet them? As we engage in our local charities, as we engage in our community as the loving face of Christ, as we seek to serve our neighbor out of our abundance, then we set the example. Then we become the norm of how a loving community lives, acts, and speaks. Yes, we are but one small community. yet we have abundant resources. If we reach out to our fellow congregations, just here in this state alone, there's 134 UCC, 57 UMC, 24 UU congregations. That's 215 congregations. How many people is that? If we focus on similar projects, what can we achieve? Even if we do not share ministries with them, we share core values that are being expressed over and over again. If we lift up the love that is Christ in our communities, then our communities are lifted up in love as well. And through that, just through simple acts, love can win. Like the rich farmer, we are tempted to think that having large amounts of money and possessions stored up will make us secure. Yet sooner or later, however, we learn that no amount of wealth or property can secure our lives. No amount of wealth can protect us from the genetically inherited disease, for instance, or from tragic accident. No amount of wealth can keep our relationships healthy and our families from falling apart. In fact, wealth and property can easily drive a wedge between family members, as in the case of the brothers fighting over their inheritance at the beginning of today's text. Most importantly, no amount of wealth can secure our lives with God. In fact, Jesus repeatedly warns that wealth can get in the way of our relationship with God. Take care, he says, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist of the abundance of possessions. This is a call to share our abundance, to evaluate our resources, to look at what the future of our church should be and invest in it wisely. This is an investment in our communities and our ministries. As we set the example and continue to minister to the community around us, and as our denominations continue to minister to the world around us, we know that one day we will see the realization of the prayer that is, as in heaven, so here on earth. Keep praying, keep listening, keep growing in God, and we soon will see the headlines that I shared dwindle. So as a final thought, let us pray into our abundance. And in my search for resources, this was quoted as the best prayer for abundance. I love it when somebody believes their prayer is best. When all comes down to it, all prayer is good. For the light of God that we are, for the love of God that we are, for the power of God that we are, for the heart of God that we are, let us decree. We dwell in the midst of infinite abundance. The river of life never stops flowing, and it flows through us with lavish expression and bountiful possibilities. Good comes to us through unexpected avenues, and God works in a myriad of ways to bless us. We now open our hearts to receive God's goodness. Nothing is too good to be true. Nothing is too wonderful to have happened. With God as our source, nothing is impossible. Let us not be burdened by thoughts of past or future. One is gone, the other is yet to come. By the power of our faith, coupled with our purposeful, fearless actions and our deep relationship with God, our future is created and our abundance made manifest. We ask and accept that we are lifted in this and in every moment into a higher truth. Our minds are quiet. From this day forward, let us give freely and fearlessly into life, and know that life gives back to us with a fabulous increase. Blessings come in expected and unexpected ways. God provides for us in wondrous ways for the work that we do. We are indeed grateful.